What are you thinking about when that buzzer sounds for that line? What do you think about when the 15th round when you're coming out?
Before Rocky Balboa ever raised his arms above Philadelphia, the movie itself was already fighting for survival. The studio wanted a famous actor. The director did not initially want to make a boxing picture. The production had roughly 1 month to shoot, and the championship arena was nowhere near as crowded as it appeared. Even the ending audiences remember was not the ending first filmed. Yet every rejection, shortage, accident, and last-minute decision left a mark on Rocky. Hollywood saw a small boxing picture starring an unknown actor. Audiences saw themselves. These are 15 stories behind Rocky, the movie Hollywood nearly counted out. Number 15. One real fight helped unlock Rocky. On March 24, 1975, Chuck Wepner entered the ring with Muhammad Ali. Few expected Wepner to last long. Ali was the heavyweight champion, one of the most gifted and famous athletes in the world. Wepner was a tough New Jersey fighter whose career had unfolded far from boxing's brightest lights. But he stayed on his feet. Wepner absorbed round after round of punishment and survived until the final round, when the referee finally stopped the fight. Sylvester Stallone was watching. Rocky Balboa was not simply Chuck Wepner with another name, and Rocky was never a disguised biography of Wepner. But the fight helped unlock the movie's central emotional idea. A man could lose the official contest and still prove something by lasting longer than anyone expected. That idea became the foundation of Rocky's private goal. Apollo Creed does not choose him because he is the best challenger. He chooses him because the Italian stallion will look good on a poster. Rocky understands that he is part of a promotion. He also understands that this may be the only door that ever opens. So he creates his own definition of victory. He wants to go the distance. The Wepner fight helped Stallone see how powerful that goal could be. What stayed with him was not a technical lesson about boxing. It was the sight of an overlooked man receiving one improbable opportunity and refusing to vanish when the punishment began. Rocky would not need to become champion to change his life. He would need to remain standing long enough to stop seeing himself as a failure. That emotional spark gave the movie its direction. Before the film could test Rocky Balboa, however, Hollywood tested the man who wanted to play him. Number 14. Stallone refused to sell Rocky without himself. United Artists saw promise in the screenplay. What the studio did not see was a proven leading man. Stallone had appeared in small roles and low-budget productions, but he was not considered a name capable of carrying a major theatrical release. Established actors were discussed for Rocky, with names such as Ryan O'Neal, James Caan, Burt Reynolds, and Robert Redford often mentioned in accounts of the project. From the studio's point of view, the logic was simple. A recognizable star would make the film easier to finance and easier to sell. Stallone was the risk. Offers for the screenplay reportedly reached approximately $275,000. For an actor and writer still struggling to establish himself, that was not an abstract amount of money. Stallone refused to give up the lead role. Rocky's speech, posture, humor, frustration, and wounded pride had grown from something personal. Selling the script while watching another actor play the character would have separated Stallone from the one part he believed could change his career. The decision is often remembered as fearless confidence. At the time, it could just as easily have become a costly mistake. There was no guarantee that Rocky would succeed. Had the film failed, refusing that offer might have looked reckless rather than courageous. Producers Irwin Winkler and Robert Chardoff supported Stallone. Their support kept the film alive, but it did not remove the studio's concern. Keeping an unproven actor meant reducing the financial risk around him. The argument over casting, therefore, shaped the movie before a frame had been shot. Rocky could move forward with Stallone, but only if the production found a cheaper path. That small movie would eventually have to create the illusion of being much larger than it really was. Number 13. The championship crowd was an illusion. The final fight appears to unfold inside a packed arena. Apollo Creed makes a theatrical entrance. Cameras line the ring. Spectators seem to fill every section while Rocky walks toward the biggest moment of his life. Much of that scale was created with roughly 50 extras. At the Los Angeles Sports Arena, the production moved small groups of people from one section to another. New camera angles made the same limited crowd appear again and again. Human cutouts were placed in arena tunnels to suggest that the building was filled beyond the visible seats. Then, a beauty pageant interrupted the shoot. After one day of filming, the boxing setup had to be removed so the arena could be used for the event. The crew later rebuilt the fight environment and continued working. Editing joined those fragments into a national spectacle. The illusion succeeds because the film never asks the audience to study the crowd. Attention stays on Rocky's face, Apollo's confidence, Mickey's concern, and the growing possibility that the challenger may still be standing when the final bell rings. The arena looks enormous, but Rocky's isolation feels personal. Apollo's entrance sells the scale first. The lights, costumes, announcers, and moving cameras persuade us that the entire country is watching. By the time Rocky enters, the audience has accepted a spectacle that was assembled from scattered pieces. That contrast was achieved without thousands of spectators or a lavish production. A few dozen people, carefully repositioned, became the audience for one of cinema's most famous fights. The trick was impressive. The greater challenge was creating a screenplay strong enough to make that fight matter. Number 12. The 3-day script was only the beginning. The familiar legend says Stallone wrote Rocky in 3 or 3.5 days. He did write a rough first draft in roughly that period, but the quick burst of writing was not the finished film. Stallone had already been thinking about the concept before he sat down to write. The Wepner fight had helped focus the underdog premise, and the first draft gave that premise a shape. Then, the screenplay changed. Later drafts refined the characters, removed material, altered the tone, and brought the story closer to the film audiences eventually saw. Revisions continued as the production developed. The most important idea became Rocky's desire to go the distance. That goal turned the championship bout into something more personal than a title fight. Rocky does not enter the ring because he expects to defeat Apollo Creed. He enters because lasting 15 rounds would prove that his life has not already been decided. The fast first draft supplied momentum. The later revisions found the movie's emotional spine. Once that spine was in place, Stallone faced another writing problem that could not be solved on the page. He still had to convince Hollywood that Rocky Balboa belonged to him. Number 11. Two turtles changed the director's mind. John G. Avildsen did not initially want to direct a boxing movie. He was not especially interested in the sports, and the project did not immediately appeal to him. Someone persuaded him to read the screenplay anyway. Then he reached a scene in Rocky's apartment. Rocky was talking to his two pet turtles, Cuff and Link. That small detail changed Avildsen's understanding of the film. The boxer was not being introduced through power or glory. He was alone in a cramped room, speaking to animals because there was nobody else waiting to hear him. Avildsen began to see Rocky as a character story and a love story, with boxing providing the visible frame. The film's quieter early scenes supported that view. Rocky brings home a bruised face after fighting in a small club. He jokes badly at the pet shop because he wants Adrian's attention. He speaks to Cuff and Link with the easy affection of someone accustomed to coming home alone. Those details gave Avildsen a reason to care about the championship later. The fight would work only if audiences first understood the man entering it. A pair of turtles revealed the loneliness inside Rocky Balboa. They also suggested the tone Avildsen would protect. The humor could be awkward, the rooms could feel quiet, the story could wait long enough for viewers to notice how much Rocky wanted ordinary companionship. From that point, Avildsen was no longer considering a routine boxing picture. He was considering Rocky. Now the question was how to make it with almost no room for delay. Number 10. Rocky survived by staying small. Winkler and Chardoff had an arrangement with United Artists that gave them a path to produce a lower-budget project. That path became crucial when they chose to support Stallone as the lead. Rocky was made for approximately $1 million, and the producers guaranteed that they would complete it. Principal photography was scheduled for roughly 28 days. Those conditions shaped every department. The filmmakers could not depend on a long shoot, elaborate sets, or repeated attempts at every scene. Locations had to be used efficiently. Performers needed to arrive prepared. Camera movement, blocking, and dialogue could not be reconsidered endlessly after the day began. Rehearsal became essential because wasted time could threaten the entire production. A scene that might have received several days on a larger picture sometimes had to reveal its character and move on. The small budget also limited the studio's exposure. That made it possible to keep Stallone in the role, but it transferred much of the pressure to the filmmakers. Rocky had to be completed whether the days went smoothly or not. The production therefore operated with the same discipline its main character would soon display. It conserved resources, absorbed problems, and kept moving. The budget did not guarantee creativity. It simply removed the option of solving every difficulty with more money. Rocky would have to earn its scale through performance, location, framing, and editing. The schedule created constant pressure, but it also kept the movie close to the streets and rooms where Rocky Balboa belonged. That pressure became visible when Philadelphia itself began supplying moments no controlled set could have produced. Number 9. Philadelphia entered the movie without being asked. During Rocky's run through the Italian market, someone on the street tossed Stallone an apple. He caught it without breaking stride. The moment stayed in the film. It worked so naturally because Rocky was a small production moving through an active city. Stallone was not yet famous enough to stop traffic or draw large crowds. Ordinary residents sometimes continued with their day while cameras captured the streets around them. Philadelphia entered the movie as a living environment rather than a sealed set. Rocky passes produce stands, row houses, warehouses, rail lines, waterfronts, and worn neighborhood corners. Pedestrians remain pedestrians. Shopkeepers seem occupied with their own routines. The city never feels arranged solely for his arrival. It appears to have existed long before the camera found him. That makes Rocky feel like a resident instead of a visitor. The bicentennial setting added another contrast. Apollo Creed builds the championship into a patriotic television event, complete with costumes, flags, and theatrical promises. Rocky comes from the quieter side of the same city, where daily life is measured in rent, work, cold mornings, and familiar streets. The film did not need a long speech to explain that difference. Philadelphia showed it. The apple became a perfect example. An unscripted gesture from a real street entered Rocky's training run and helped the city feel as though it recognized him before the rest of the country did. Inside that city, the film still needed an Adrian who seemed to have spent years avoiding recognition. Her appearance began with a trip to a thrift store. Number 8, Adrian was built from a coat, a hat, and glasses. Talia Shire saw Adrian as a woman who had learned to make herself visually small. John G. Avildsen gave Shire money to visit a thrift store, where she found pieces that helped construct the character's early appearance. The coat hid her shape. The hat lowered her presence. The large glasses placed another barrier between Adrian and anyone trying to look closely. These were not decorative costume choices. They gave Shire a physical way to express Adrian's caution before the character could explain herself. The silhouette did much of the storytelling before Adrian spoke. Her clothes seemed chosen to prevent notice rather than invite it. At the pet shop, she retreats into those layers, speaks softly, and avoids direct attention. As her relationship with Rocky develops, the visual construction changes gradually. The layers loosen, her face becomes easier to see, her posture grows less defensive. The transformation remains restrained because Rocky was already interested in her before any visible change. The film does not present a glamorous reveal as the reason she deserves affection. Instead, the costume work tracks Adrian's growing willingness to be seen. That makes the final ring scene more powerful. When she pushes through the crowd toward Rocky, the woman who once tried to disappear is forcing her way into the center of the film's loudest moment. The journey begins with a thrift store coat, a hat, and a pair of glasses. Shire and Avildsen turned a modest costume decision into a visible map of Adrian's confidence. Apollo Creed required the opposite construction. He had to look as though every room had been waiting for him. Number 7. Carl Weathers auditioned like a champion. Apollo Creed could not feel like a symbol placed in Rocky's path. He had to feel like a real heavyweight champion. Carl Weathers brought the physical credibility of a professional athlete. He had played football, moved with confidence, and understood how to occupy space like a man accustomed to competition. During his audition, Weathers read opposite Stallone. According to the story both men later recalled, Weathers was dissatisfied with the reading and said he could perform better with a real actor. He did not realize that the man opposite him was the writer and intended star of the film. The remark could have ended the audition. Instead, it revealed exactly the confidence Apollo required. Weathers did not approach the role timidly. He carried himself as though he expected the scene, the room, and eventually the arena to belong to him. His performance also gave Apollo intelligence. Apollo studies the problem like a promoter before he approaches it like a fighter. When a scheduled opponent withdraws, he does not simply complain. He invents a promotion. An unknown Philadelphia fighter will receive a title shot during America's bicentennial celebration. The plan is theatrical, patriotic, and commercially clever. Apollo's mistake is not stupidity. It is believing the event will remain under his control. As the fight continues, Weathers lets that confidence tighten into concern. The smiles shorten. The movement becomes more urgent. The champion gradually realizes that Rocky is not cooperating with the script Apollo wrote for him. That shift is essential. Rocky's endurance means more because Apollo never seems weak. Weathers made him feel like a genuine champion, not a villain waiting to be defeated. Mickey needed a different kind of credibility. Burgess Meredith found it through one question that was not originally in the screenplay. Number 6. One improvised question defined Mickey. For Burgess Meredith's audition, he and Stallone performed the confrontation over Rocky's lost locker. Then Avildsen asked them to put the script aside and improvise. As Rocky turned to leave, Meredith asked whether he had ever thought about retiring. The question stayed. It immediately sharpened Mickey Goldmill. He could be cruel enough to say what Rocky feared, experienced enough to recognize the damage, and concerned enough to ask before it was too late. That complexity carries into Mickey's later visit to Rocky's apartment. Once Apollo offers the title shot, Mickey wants to become Rocky's manager. Rocky sees the timing clearly. He explodes after Mickey leaves, demanding to know where the old trainer was when he still had years to develop. The anger is justified. So is Mickey's regret. He believes Rocky had talent, and he knows that he failed to guide it when there was more time. Now the championship offer may be the final opening for both men. Rocky follows Mickey outside. That simple movement completes the scene. The shouting has not repaired their history, and Mickey has not offered a perfect apology. Rocky has not forgotten the neglect, but he also knows he cannot prepare alone. The improvised retirement question placed lost time at the center of their relationship. It made Mickey's later offer feel less like a convenient plot turn and more like the return of a regret he had been carrying. Mickey is not only training Rocky for Apollo Creed, he is trying to repair what he failed to see soon enough. Another production problem would create a quieter scene, where Rocky and Adrian could move without anyone watching them. Number 5. The empty skating rink came from an empty budget. Rocky and Adrian's first date originally included a longer conversation in a cafe. Avildsen felt the sequence needed movement. Bowling and ice skating were considered, and the filmmakers chose the rink. A normal skating scene would require hundreds of extras. Rocky could not afford them, so the rink was closed. Within the story, Rocky persuades an attendant to let them enter after hours. Adrian moves carefully across the ice while Rocky walks beside her in his street shoes. The emptiness became the scene's defining image. There is no crowd to impress and no public performance to maintain. Rocky talks too much because silence makes him nervous. Adrian listens while testing whether she can trust him. He tells her that his father believed he had no brains and should use his body. The line begins like a joke, then reveals how long Rocky has carried other people's low expectations. The closed rink gives the conversation room to breathe. Rocky stays on the floor because he cannot skate, while Adrian circles carefully beside him. Their different movement keeps the scene visually alive without disturbing its hesitation. A busier version might have supplied more energy, but it would have weakened the privacy. Here, two lonely people move through an empty space at their own uncertain speed. The rink became intimate because the production could not afford to fill it. Later, a different shortage would preserve a mistake large enough for Rocky to see from across an arena. Number 4. The wrong boxing trunks became part of the movie. The night before the championship fight, Rocky enters the empty arena. Above the ring hang enormous painted images of Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa. Rocky studies his portrait and notices that the trunks are the wrong color. The promoter dismisses the concern. It does not really matter. The exchange feels like a carefully written humiliation. Even at the largest event of Rocky's life, the people controlling the spectacle cannot be bothered to represent him correctly. The moment began with a production mistake. The artist responsible for Rocky's giant image had been given a photograph showing different trunks. By the time the error was discovered, the filmmakers did not have the time or money to repaint it. So, the mistake entered the script. The error became evidence. Apollo's side has planned costumes, music, promotion, and television spectacle. Rocky's image is an afterthought, because almost nobody running the event believes he is the real attraction. The wrong trunks also deepen the scene that follows. Rocky has entered the arena hoping to understand what awaits him. Instead, he finds a giant version of himself that is already inaccurate. After seeing the building prepared around Apollo, Rocky returns home and admits to Adrian that he does not expect to win. For the first time, the size of the challenge has become physical. It is hanging above the ring. Rocky cannot control the poster, the promotion, or the official expectations. He can still decide what he will prove inside the ropes. To capture the training that leads him there, the filmmakers relied on a camera system that was still new to feature production. Number 3. The museum steps needed the Steadicam. Rocky's training montage required the camera to move with Stallone through streets, markets, waterfronts, and finally up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Traditional handheld footage would shake. Tracks would require preparation, equipment, and paths the production did not always have. Garrett Brown offered another solution. Brown had developed a camera stabilization system called the Steadicam. In demonstration footage, he showed the camera moving smoothly through spaces that would normally be difficult to film. One section followed his girlfriend, Ellen, down and back up the museum steps. Avildsen saw the possibility immediately. Rocky became one of the earliest feature films to use the Steadicam extensively. Brown could follow Stallone without locking the movement to tracks or reducing the run to distant angles. The result changed the audience's relationship with the training montage. Early in his preparation, Rocky's body seems heavy and the city seems larger than he is. The camera stays close enough for the effort to register. As the training progresses, his movement becomes more confident and the route begins to feel like territory he has claimed. The camera travels beside Rocky through the cold. It moves through the Italian market, where the apple enters the scene. It follows his growing speed and then climbs with him toward the museum. By the time Rocky reaches the top, the movement feels shared. The steps were not built for the film, but the Steadicam helped make them inseparable from it. What might have been a simple wide shot became a physical release after weeks of effort. The image of Rocky raising his arms would outlive the technology's novelty. But before that image could lead into the championship, Stallone and Carl Weathers had to design a fight far more carefully than its chaos suggests. Number 2. The final fight was written like a ballet. When Stallone and Weathers began planning the championship sequence, punches were being suggested one at a time. One actor proposed a move, the other answered. At that pace, constructing a 15-round fight would take too long. Avildsen told Stallone to write the entire bout down. Stallone returned with approximately 32 pages of choreography. The fight was treated almost like a ballet. The actors rehearsed for weeks. Avildsen filmed rehearsal materials so the performers could study timing, spacing, and moments that did not read clearly on camera. Each section of the fight needed to advance the story. Apollo begins with speed, control, and showmanship. Rocky moves with more weight and absorbs punishment that should end the night. When Rocky knocks Apollo down, the champion's amusement disappears. From there, the choreography measures more than damage. It tracks Apollo's surprise, Mickey's fear, and Rocky's refusal to accept the ending everyone else expects. The choreography makes their differences visible without turning the bout into a technical lecture. Apollo controls space. Rocky keeps returning. As the rounds pass, the fight stops being a publicity event and becomes a test of identity for both men. The sequence also had to remain understandable after editing. Reactions from Mickey, Adrian, Paulie, Apollo's corner, and the announcers were placed around the action. Close shots made the punishment immediate. Wider views restored the geography of the ring. The punches and falls were then compressed into a continuous emotional climb. The finished work earned Rocky the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Yet, after all that planning, the filmmakers discovered that the fight still led to the wrong emotional finish. They completed the movie, watched it, and realized the ending had to be changed. Number 1. Rocky had to lose the fight so the movie could win. The ending first filmed was much quieter than the one audiences remember. After the championship, Rocky and Adrian met inside the nearly empty arena. They took each other's hands and walked away. The idea sounded restrained and tender. On screen, it drained the movie of energy. Rocky had spent the entire final act absorbing punishment, fighting through exhaustion, and reaching the bell he had defined as his personal finish line. The audience had traveled through 15 rounds with him. Then the release disappeared. The filmmakers knew the emotional ending was wrong. They returned for a brief reshoot. The large arena setup and crowd were no longer fully available, so the new ending was built with close framing and a limited number of people around the actors. That restriction concentrated attention exactly where the film needed it. Adrian pushes through the confusion toward the ring. Reporters, officials, and spectators crowd around Rocky. The judges announce the decision. Rocky barely listens. He calls for Adrian. When she reaches him, the championship result becomes background noise. Apollo Creed wins the split decision. Rocky loses the fight. But Rocky has already completed the goal he confessed the night before. He remained standing for 15 rounds with the heavyweight champion of the world. He has also found the person he wants beside him when the ordeal ends. The reshot ending understands that Rocky's victory cannot depend on a judge giving him the title. If Rocky had simply defeated Apollo, the movie would have become a fantasy about instant greatness. Instead, the film gives him something more personal. He defines success before the world can define it for him. That is why the shouted names matter more than the announced score. Rocky calls for Adrian because she represents the life waiting beyond the ring. Adrian reaches Rocky because she is no longer willing to remain outside the center of his world. The close shots, forced by the limited reshoot, make the ending feel less like a sports result and more like an emotional collision. The original version sent Rocky and Adrian quietly into an empty building. The new version let them find each other inside the noise. Rocky had to lose the official fight. Only then could the movie complete the promise it had been building from the beginning. Rocky received 10 Academy Award nominations and won Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Film Editing. The small production Hollywood nearly counted out had gone far beyond anyone's safest expectations. But its lasting power does not come from awards alone. Audiences recognized a man who could not control the odds, the promotion, or the final decision. He could only decide what would count as victory when the bell rang. That idea reached far beyond the boxing ring. Viewers did not need Rocky's gloves or Apollo's arena to understand the fear of being dismissed before receiving a real chance. The movie gave that feeling a face, a city, and a finish line. Where did you first see Rocky, and which moment has stayed with you the longest? The final bell rang decades ago, but somewhere in Philadelphia, Rocky Balboa is still running.